Okay, we are live now. So, hello everyone and good night. So, I'm the host today, Lukman, and my co-host here, Muzaki, and our
Hello.
guest, JD Wong here.
Hello.
Okay,
Hi there.
can you introduce yourself a bit?
Who should we start? I think you start with you guys first, man. You guys are the hosts.
Our host. Okay, we are student from Ocean Institute. We are handling this live stream for people that asking about home studio. Okay, you got anything to say?
At Ocean, we actually learning how about mixing, production stuff, live sound.
I
Everyone
was expecting that
enjoy.
you guys would try and sell Ocean, Ocean a little bit harder, man, a little bit more. I think Ocean, if I'm not mistaken, is actually one of the oldest colleges or oldest schools that's dedicated to audio in Malaysia. If I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, it's
Before
one
this,
of the
we got
oldest, right?
SAE. Before
Yeah.
this, we got SAE, right? But SAE closed. So
Yeah,
only Ocean, the
correct. Yeah,
only
Of
audio.
course. Yeah, of course there are others now, but Ocean and SE were the ones that have been around for the longest time lah. You are the OGs lah
Yeah.
in the audio engineering and the audio education side of things. So yeah, thanks man, thanks for the opportunity and inviting me to come on board. It is a real big honor, man.
Thank you too for joining us for this session.
No problem.
Can you tell us about a bit about yourself, your
Oh,
work,
okay.
personal experience?
Introductions first lah. It's my turn. Okay, my name is JD. All right. I am a producer, an audio engineer, a mixing engineer slash studio owner slash musician. Nowadays, slash YouTube content creator as well, music educator, music and audio educator. Man, nowadays you got to do everything lah, right? So you have to diversify. You have to be you can't just be doing one thing only. And so yeah, um, this is what I've been doing for over 20 years, coming to about 20, yeah, just slightly over 20 years, 21 years now, I think to be precise. After secondary school, I enrolled and into the International College of Music in ICOM. This is in 1999. So you can roughly date lah, the age lah, the years lah, and you can guess how old I am. Okay. Right. So yeah, 999. Then I finished and I started working freelance in several studios, some small studios, Studio 101 in PJ, Synchro Sound Studios, which was an awesome studio. One of the back then it was the largest and most advanced studio in the whole of Southeast Asia. Back then, but unfortunately, it's no longer around. And then after that, I moved out and started my own studio here, Studio 2105, here in KL, in Kuala Lumpur. And it's been here for 16 years right now. Yeah. There is also a couple of other things. I am also the current serving president of the AES in Malaysia, AES Malaysia section, which is the Audio Engineering Society. So, for those of you who are watching, who are aspiring audio engineers, whether you have an interest in audio, or whether you're studying audio, you guys actually should come and join, okay? Right?
Yeah, I want to join. Actually.
All right, sure. Right. Well, I'll leave all the info and all that later. We'll talk about that. I think you mentioned also in your Facebook post and your social medias. Yes, I am also a member of a little known, small little Malaysian local band called Pop Shavit. So yeah,
small actually.
it's a small band lah. We play some shows here and there. That's all.
Where the last show, the AME, right?
The last major show was actually no. The last big show we did was actually, it was called the um, Malacca City Festival in the City at Malacca.
Oh,
This was in February 2020, before MCO, before the lockdown, but already around the world. China, it was already in Wuhan. We already know what was going on, and then in Europe as well. But man, we were so nervous. That show. I think everyone was nervous lah, right? Because big show, big crowd in the whole Padang in Malacca at the Dataran Padang Mahkota there, and so many people. But thankfully, there's no. I think that time in February, the cases were not here yet lah. So there were no cases that came out. That tak ada cluster festival. Yeah, no cluster gig. And arguably, look, until this day, I think there has never been a cluster or a case resulting from gigs or concerts or shows. Again, but as far as I know, so musicians have a good discipline in keeping to the SOPs, man, and social distancing. Anyway, yeah, that's going out of the topic a bit.
It's okay. That's a bit through the introduction. Okay, so. Can we jump to the question?
First question. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the first question is, do you think musicians nowadays need a home studio?
Oh, okay. Oh, first of all, maybe I ask the question first. These questions are we doing any live Q&As later on? Do you have any questions coming from other people, or you have already kind of prepared some of these questions?
No, I think at the end of the video, the live we will ask.
Okay, we'll open up for later lah, right? So
Yeah.
cool. All right. So that will be great, Now the answer is yes. Okay, next question. Okay, right. Just kidding. Okay. Of course, yes. The answer is yes, but the arguably that is even before the pandemic, even during pre-pandemic times, right? Knowing how to record yourself, is always a valuable asset. So look, for example, in my band, I was the one who was the audio engineer, the one who knew how to record, the one that knew how to, work the DAW, know how to work software. And I'm sure some of you might be. Are you guys, any of you guys in a band or something like that?
Yeah.
Surely the band is always relying on you, right, to be doing a lot of the demo, pre-production work. There's always maybe one person in a band who has that knowledge and that skill, right? So the job always falls to them. So I mean, let's not talk about what's going on now. Even before that, if you have a home studio, if you know how to do basic home recording, it allows you to do pre-production, right? That means you work on your song arrangement, all your parts, your musical ideas, it allows the band members to even rehearse. So for example, if you have a demo, if you make a demo, you can send a demo for the singer to practice, right? So it allows all of this to be done before you even enter a studio, right? Because there's a saying that was shared to me, right? A studio is an expensive place to practice. Okay, I mean a recording studio lah. So that was always the role and the function of a home studio before this, during pre-pandemic times, right? What other things? I have some notes here. Okay, so let me just take a look at it. Having a home studio would allow you to work remotely. You can collaborate with musicians from all around the world. And I would say those musicians who adapted early, right, with having a home studio. Have a much easier time trying to adapt to the current situation. Okay. what are the benefits? I would think that having a home studio is also a great learning tool. Even if you are not someone who is going to become a recording engineer or a mixing engineer or someone to be a musician, just having be able to record yourself and then listen back. I mean, you can put it up as your promotional tools. You can use it as a learning tool because it provides you the feedback. You see, you record yourself, then you watch yourself or you listen back to your playing or your performance. It's always good. Even for musicians as well. We'll always record our live shows, for example, or even our jamming session. Record it, listen back to it because it's a good learning tool. It's a feedback. We will learn that what's wrong, what needs to be improved, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be changed, and all that lah. And now fast forward, of course, now to 2020 and 2021, current day. Of course, now with social distancing, it forced everyone to work remotely lah. So now you need to able to record your own parts, to send to the producer, to send to engineers, to send to your other bandmates and all that. So yeah, so it's definitely and having a home studio nowadays, I would say, is indispensable. You definitely need to have at least some way of recording yourself, right, with a decent quality nowadays.
Okay. Wow, there's too much information there.
Oh, sure. Oh, sorry, yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
No worry. Tak apa.
Well, but like I said, short answer is yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay, we move to second question lah.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the most basic setup that we need to run a home studio?
Okay, all right. To sort of run a home studio lah, right? Okay. I'm not gonna go into that straight away because this question just pops up every time. You see, on on Facebook, on all the online groups, the forums, the discussion groups. You always have someone asking, "Oh, what's the best this? What's the best that? What's the best this? What should I get? What should I buy?" And to be honest, it's really tiring, right? I am an admin and mod for some groups as well, and I know how tiring it can get. Trying to answer every single of those the same question. So, it's more. I'll get to that. All right, what you need to set up, but I think it's very important to always take this thing into consideration, right? Right. There's a saying I like to use, which is, I would say that your mission, meaning what your end goal, right? Your mission is what informs. Is what determines your decision. So, what that really means is that you always want to think about what is your objective. If you want to get into home recording, what is your objective that you want to do, right? Once you know what your objective is, then you will know, okay, what to get, what are the things that you will need to get, okay, right? There's three questions, right? When I talk about setting up a home studio that you need to ask. First thing question number one, the first one is, how many inputs do you need at the same time, simultaneously, right? So when anyone who asks the question, right, I always ask them this question back: how many inputs? No, I have to know what your requirements are. I have to know what your objective and what your goals is. You see, like as I mentioned earlier. So how many inputs do you need? Right? You were recording a vocal. You're recording a guitar. You're doing keyboards. Okay, so that's the first one, right? How many inputs? Then secondly, the second question is, okay, will you need to expand your input, your capabilities in the future? Do you think about that later on, 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, that, oh, alamak, I'm going to need, instead of 2 inputs, I need 4 inputs now because, I want to be able to record my vocal, one guitar, and then, bass and maybe a keyboard together at one time. Right? It's important to ask this question because let's say if you start out and then you buy an audio interface or a piece of equipment that's only got two channels, then later on, 6 months down the line, you found that I need to upgrade. I need to buy a new interface. It would have saved you more cost. It would have been much more better to go and buy the interface with more inputs in the first place instead of having to buy one and then realize later down the line that you didn't have enough channels, you didn't have enough inputs. And so that is the question number 2. And question number 3, very simple. What's your budget?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Budget.
Yeah. What's your budget like? Because if you consider your requirements, okay, you need 2 channels only. Then within that 2 channels, there are different, budget. You could from the most affordable one will be something like a Behringer. Then you go up to that from you have Focusrite, PreSonus. Then towards the more expensive side, if you have 2 channels, well, things like the UAD Apollo, right, and the SSL 2, right. Those are 2 channels also, but the price difference is huge. You see.
Yeah.
So what's your budget? Yeah. If some people can afford the Apollo, well, maybe that's what they should go for. Well, some people can only afford the Behringer. Definitely go for that. Go for that. Yeah. So, I didn't even get down to what is the basic setup that you need. Okay, right. All right. Now, firstly, obviously, the first thing you need is either a computer lah. All right. You need a computer, either a desktop or a laptop will do. Okay. Anything nowadays, right? In current year spec, like 2020, 2021 specs is more than enough for audio production. I am running on a desktop which is nearly 10 years old, which is still an early generation i7, and I can handle 100 plus tracks with all the plugins, everything on, not a problem. So nowadays processing power is not really an issue, right? It's other factors which are the limiting factor lah. Okay, what else, right? You need, of course, also the DAW software. Not only you need that software to run on the you need the DAW software to be able to run. And I would say most of the products, right, the audio interfaces that nowadays, they almost always come bundled with the software already. So it's not something that you have to spend a few thousand ringgit getting the full version. Plus there's also a lot of other highly affordable ones. Like if you want it to be free, there's Cakewalk by Bandwalk and by BandLab. There is a Reaper. Reaper is not exactly free, but it's got a super affordable license. Plus, like I said, I mean, if you don't need the full version of the DAWs, most of the hardware that you buy will always come bundled with the software already. What else? Okay, so let me go down the other list. I'm looking at my notes down here. So back to earlier, right? So the basic setup gear. Now, if you only need to record vocals only, the simplest and most cost-effective way is very easy. USB microphone and a pair of headphones. That's it, right? It's kind of exactly what I have on the setup here. USB mic. Whether can you see it here? And then on the headphones, yeah. So just a USB mic and headphones, because the USB also as an audio interface ready, right? And it's very easy. It's usually just plug and play. It's very easy. It's convenient. It's easily portable, right? Correct. Now, there are some disadvantages to this. Is that usually a USB mic won't have the best audio quality. It's okay. It's good. It's decent, right? It's pretty decent, but it's not going to have the best, right, quality if you compare to having a separate audio interface and mic lah. All right, and obviously because it's USB, it's not flexible. You can't record anything else. It's only meant for maybe just one vocal lah. Right. So hopefully you guys or whoever's watching this, they're clear. Okay. Now, optimally, the next step, all right, beyond the USB mic is to have a dedicated audio interface, right? You need to have a separate microphone, be it it can either be a dynamic or a condenser, right? Depending on what the requirements are. Then headphones or arguably, right, monitor speakers if your room allows it, lah, right? Or if your environment, your acoustics and situations allows it, having monitor speakers. Otherwise, headphones nowadays is a very, very viable options. All right. What are the things that are optional? Now, there are some other things which I would consider optional. You can have a MIDI controller if you don't want to be drawing in your notes, right, on your
Piano roll.
drawing the piano roll, yeah, the MIDI notes on the piano roll. Having a MIDI controller, right, would be very, very helpful. But one thing that a lot of people don't forget to budget for, because remember the third question which I earlier budget, right? Sometimes people forget. They get all these things, they forgot to take into account things like cables. You need your XLR cables, your quarter-inch cables. If you need MIDI cables, for example, USB cables, stands, you need a mic stand, monitor stand. Sometimes all the accessories, the things that you don't think of, is the non-sexy stuff, lah, right? Right? That sometimes can also cost as much as as all the other equipment as well. Yeah. What are the things I would say, right? File storage is important. That's one thing. Don't forget. Okay, you need to have a backup hard disk drive. Additional flash drive, or maybe you are using cloud services or etc. Right? Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. Now, one last thing when you talk about having a home studio setup, and it's often neglected, right? But it's very, very, very important. I think you guys will know, can guess what I'm going to say, what it is. It's acoustic treatment. So at least some basic acoustic treatment you can either DIY, you can also buy products which are already prefabricated, which already comes in a package or something like that, but at least some acoustic treatment, lah, right? If you want to do some form of a recording. Arguably, again, as I said, headphones could be an option. If acoustics are bad or you don't have the budget for acoustics, then mix on headphones, lah. Yeah. I guess that's it. Again, sorry for the long answer, eh?
No, it's quite helpful.
Yeah.
It's quite helpful for viewers.
I think now there's going to be a demand. So for second-hand stuff, you can sell. I think very easy. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see the jam tank, everything, right?
Yeah. It's sad though, because every time, every phase, right, every new MCO, you will see like all the stuff being on sale, and it's actually quite sad. It's a day, because you see people selling the things that they love, their instruments that bring joy to them, but you see that they have to sell it in order to survive. Anyway, yeah, that's the sad part. Yeah.
Okay, so
let's get out of the sad part.
Okay, so we go to the next question. Do you have any product suggestion that not too expensive for the tight budget one? Do you think?
Oh, yeah. Okay, right. To be frank, there's so many products nowadays, right, out there in the market, and especially towards the home recording sector, the segment. There's so many, like I mentioned, right? They're on the lower end of the spectrum. There are those that cost 200 ringgit. Then you go towards the higher end of the range. There's those that are for 2 channels also already 1,000 plus. plus ringgit already. All right. So there's so many products out there actually, right? So it's very hard to really pin down what would be the best. But if I were to take, because everyone would need to see lah, you know, because the quality between the lowest price, the cheapest and the most expensive ones, the difference isn't that huge, right? I'm sure you guys know, right? So even the entry level, the most budget product, the quality is actually not bad. It's actually pretty good nowadays compared to what it was like 15 years ago lah. But okay, now if I were to really consider across the whole product range, right? Disclaimer, okay, I'm not sponsored by any of these brands which I'm going to mention. Not sponsored or anything, okay, right? Right. If I would say, let's say audio interface, really the best value for money in terms of quality and features and the build quality, audio quality, everything. I would say the best would be the Audient, right? The Audient interfaces they have, from their audio ID4, which is like 2 channels, all the way to the 44, which has got like 20 inputs, 20 channels. So because I think in terms of all the other manufacturers, they are the only ones that have used the same preamp in their entry level, the home studio market product, all the way to their high end. It's the same preamp. So you really get the best quality lah in that kind of range lah. When it comes to microphones, I will say hands down, nothing will beat the Audio Technica 2080, the 2000 series. This means the 2020, 2035, the 2050, right? I use Audio Technica. I'm very, very familiar with them, right? Honestly, within that price range, nothing comes close to the 2000 series lah. And if talk about headphones, just go for the Audio Technica, same then, M series, M40. If you can afford, I would say at least go for the M40. But if you can always go for the M50 instead lah. What I have here, these are actually Bayer Dynamics. The Bayer Dynamics are a little bit pricier lah, so it wouldn't be the exactly I wouldn't really classify it as the budget and affordable range. Yeah, it's more towards the mid and high already. Yeah. So so those are the products that I suggest taking a look at.
So we got one question here. Any budget USB mic?
Oh, any budget USB mic? Right, yeah, the 80-20-20, you have the USB version. So that is exactly the same mic capsule, the exact same mic capsule, the same body, same housing. The only difference is that it's a USB mic with the built-in interface and the AD converter. Yeah. I just say that's what you want. You can go for if it's a USB mic.
Right. So for the next question is the hardest one, I think.
Okay.
What musician need to know about home studio, like EQing, the equipment, guitar setup, tuning, input levels.
Okay. Okay. I think there is. I mean, down here on my notes, I've got quite a list of things. So what would a musician need to know about home studio? I think I will kind of bypass and skip the thing about things such as guitar setup and your intonation and all that, because I think that falls under more towards guitar, right? More of instrument, and by right, musician, you should already have your instruments and your your equipment well taken care of, well maintained. Things, basic things as such as before you record, make sure you have fresh strings and all that, right? That's already the basic stuff. I don't really need to go into it. But going into a home studio, I think the very, very first thing that musicians should have to take into consideration. I've actually got quite a long list, so I'll try and narrow it down to those which I think are most important lah. Okay, so first thing, I think when you want to set up a home studio, the first point is that you want to identify and select the best room, the most ideal room possible. And what I mean by that, you want to pick the best room that you have available to you. Of course, sometimes if you are living in an apartment with housemates, you have no choice lah. You only have one room lah, okay? Unless you can negotiate, there's some spare room which you can use or whatsoever, right? So, couple of things that you want to avoid. You want to avoid very small rooms, because the smaller the room, right, actually, the more acoustic problems it will create, right? Because first of all, when the room dimensions are so small, you get so much more reflections coming off the walls because the walls are so much nearer to you. Also, small rooms are more prone to all the issues related to standing waves and the notes and the low end frequency. Right? I'm not an acoustics expert, so I won't go into detail about that. Okay, I know the basics of that, but a proper acoustics expert and acoustician will be able to tell more. But noise considerations, thing that you have to think about, is the room free of things like traffic noise, things like traffic, neighbors, do you have any neighbors or not? Neighbor issue, or even your housemates or your family members, right? Which one will be less of how to say, less of a disturbance to everyone else, right? When you are doing your work, or you're EQing your kick drum for 20 minutes, you see, and you don't want people to be listening to you EQing your kick drum for 20 minutes. Even things such as air conditioning, air conditioning noise, environmental noise, animals, wind, rain, all these things need to be taken into account. So yeah, you firstly always choose survey where's the best place and the best room. Okay, so that's number two. For musicians, right, I think this is very, very important. Okay, you need to learn some of the basics of digital audio, and I always emphasize this, right? And very, very often can get into long discussions, long pointless discussion, because these kind of discussions should not be necessary because it's so basic. But anyway, yeah, musicians should know, all right, at least read up into the basics of digital audio lah. I'm not asking them to know what is sampling theorem and all that. I'm not asking them to memorize all these things, but there are 2 points that's very important when it comes to digital audio. To know the bit depth and sampling rate. These 2 things, that's all. Yeah, basically these 2, right? Okay. So that's what it is. Number 3.3 would be to learn the basics of signal flow. Okay. Now, if you are a guitarist, I would say guitarist or bassist. Now, guitarists who run a lot of analog pedals, okay. Usually guitarists they're very good with their signal flow already, because they understand, right? They understand that, okay, the signals coming from my guitar, coming out to the pickups, out to the cable, the output of the guitar to the cable, to the input of your pedals, and then how they position the pedal, tuner, wah pedal, distortion, compressor, whatsoever, and then out to the amp. So, so it's important for all musicians, if you are going to be setting up a home studio, you need to understand signal flow, okay? And it's not something super complicated, right? You don't have to make things too complicated. Start with something simple first. If you are talking about vocals, understand how the signal flow is, right? You have the voice going into a microphone going to XLR cable going into the input on your mic pre, on your audio interface, then from there, so on and so forth, lah, right? So it's important, I would say. Signal flow is important. Again, number one, a couple of reasons, right? The main benefit is that so that if you ever come into a situation where we are all kind of social distance, we're all locked down like this, you know how to troubleshoot and you know how to solve and fix your own problems, right? Because you cannot rely on someone coming over to help you. Hey, can you help me to fix everything? And all that. You don't no choice. You memang kena independent lah. You have to be independent. You have to know how to sort and figure out what is wrong. Or sometimes she's like, hey, how come got no sound? Hey, how come got no sound? If you know signal flow, then you can know how to trace your signal flow from point A to point B to point C, and then you identify, oh, okay, this is the issue, the problem, right? So yeah, exactly, yeah. Let's see. So where's that? So that was number 3. Okay, number 4. Okay, right. So musicians out there, a lot of homework to do lah. Okay, hey, but if you are spending a lot of time indoors and not going out and all that, hey, it's time to learn, man, and read up. Okay, so number 4 would be you want to understand signal levels, right? So you understand signal flow, you also must understand signal levels. Okay, so what do I mean by signal levels? So basically, the signal levels. They are basically 4. Right? At the simplest, there's 4. There's mic level, there's instrument level, there's line level, and speaker level. Okay, I'm not going to go into super detail because it's going to take very long. But basically, right, understanding what the signal levels will allow you to understand, hey, why is level so soft? Hey, why is it so noisy? Why am I getting so much noise? For example, very often because it's things that's got to be related to level mismatch, or oh, why is my level distorting? Why is it clipping or something like that, right? Because maybe somewhere down the line you are driving your input, you are sending a signal which is too high into your input. That so understanding what signal levels will be useful lah. Okay, let's see what else is there. This is pretty it's quite in depth, but I want to touch a little bit about related to levels, right? Right, would be understanding meters. Yeah, I know. Man, as a musician, you must be thinking, oh man, so many things that I have to look into, but no worries, right? One by one, these are all actually very, very simple things to understand. But basically here, all right, when I talk about meters, right, it's important to know the difference between analog, right, metering and also digital metering. And it's very important because when you are recording nowadays, right, inside digital via digital audio, you need to be aware of what sort of levels you need to be feeding into, right? So this is again a question which comes up over and over again in recording forums, and it's a topic that always gets asked and always gets brought up lah. What should my recording levels be? The answer to this, okay, all right, I would say, look, nowadays with digital audio, it's very forgiving because of 24-bit resolution audio that we have nowadays. If you record the levels very high, it's as long as you don't clip, it's fine. You record it very low, it's still okay. You still have good enough resolution, right? So But because of that, people always also forget. So recommendation, right, nowadays has always been to aim for, right, minus 18 dBFS. So basically just that, just aim for an average level of around minus 18 dBFS. Look at your meter, all right, whenever you are recording, always look at your input meter, right? You want your meter to be kind of hovering around that level lah, minus 18 dBFS. If you're there, right, you are safe. You don't need to record super high, super hot, right, levels anymore nowadays. And yeah, basically that's it, man. Those are some of the points that musicians need to know. Okay, right.
So we don't have any other question, but I think we should ask the viewer if anyone got question. So we got one actually from Lin Jason. He said, "Hi JD, I start my own recording business, but I'm struggling to look for some client. Are there any tips?"
Wow. Okay. Right. Struggling to look for clients. Okay. That's a very hard question nowadays because it used to go hand in hand with live music. In order to, you know, to now in order to how it used to work is that, with live music there always be bands who need to perform. We have to understand that we actually live in an ecosystem, right? So the ecosystem used to be, a new band comes up, all right, and then a new band will always want to record their EP or record their album, so from there, from that pool of the upcoming talent, that is usually the best place to look for and to look for new clients lah. Look for you want to look and identify areas where there is a need, demand. So that would be kind of how would be the best way in the past. You see, networking, attending gigs, going to the gigs, going to the shows, talking with the bands, meeting with the bands, and it really is a lot of groundwork. Okay, but unfortunately now with the pandemic, it's really, it's disrupted so many different industries. Tourism, service industry, so many of our economic sectors, and the ecosystems that used to be work have been disrupted lah. And to be honest, this is really, really one of the areas lah. Even I myself, right, it's finding it really, really a lot harder and harder nowadays. Okay, but I would still say try and adopt the similar approach. Try and look and identify, right? Go around and now look. Basically, the topic of today's question is, home studio anyway, and then everybody's got a home studio now, right? So for you to look for clients, it's you have to be able to offer something that they cannot do for themselves. You see, so what it is, right? I can't really tell you, right? You have to sort of determine what it is that you have, that you have to offer that they can't have lah. Is it your mixing skills? Would it be your skills as a producer? Maybe you're someone who's very good at, coming up and producing beats, making samples. Maybe someone who's really good at tuning vocals, producing vocals. You have to identify what your strength, what are the special skills and unique skills that you have, and identify and find the clients, find those people who need that sort of skills. So of course it's a lot harder, and I would say honestly, if you're just starting out, some of the work you may have to do on a you may have to do on a pro bono, meaning you have to do it for free, right, on the free basis at first to build your portfolio before you start, charging more. Or you could always do something you could always work on what the music industry refers to as on a spec basis. Spec here is short for speculation, right? So spec basis here means okay, you will invest your time and your effort. Okay, you help to record, you help to mix maybe this band's EP and album, but you work out a deal or an agreement that say, hey, if your single, right, if you become very successful, if it becomes a hit, right, maybe you work out a back end deal with them to get a percentage, a cut of whatever income or revenue that comes from it lah. Right, so you have to think of different ways, and you have to adapt differently nowadays, because to be frank, everyone is, in terms of cash flow, we're all really really tight, right? So bands, musicians, all don't have the um, um, don't have cash readily on hand. No gigs, no shows, right? That's another problem. So
Yeah.
this might be one way to sort of get work lah. It's unfortunate. There's no easy answers nowadays lah, right? So yeah, work on a spec basis. Try and you work on working out some kind of a deal to get some kind of a back end out of it. Some profit sharing, revenue split, or something like that. In exchange for your services, right? If their record does well, if their EP or album does well, they get a lot of streams, they get a lot of plays, maybe a certain percentage, right? You should get a certain percentage out of the revenue lah. Yeah, I hope that helps. Okay, right? I know it's not easy, like in this day and age. Okay, but I hope that helps. Yeah.
So we jump to the next question from Izwan. Hey
Alright.
JD, have you
Izwan.
ever experienced burnout? If so, how do you deal with it?
Ooh, sensitive question here.
Yeah.
Wow, um, to be frank lah, to be honest, okay, all right. Definitely there have been times where I felt like man, he's like I don't want to be doing this anymore. When you are doing this. Now let's get straight lah. All right, I think every one of us who are in the creative arts, in the creative sector of things, our motivation is usually not financial. Right, and sometimes that can come back to bite you in the proverbial behind. Okay, it can bite you in the arse, right, later on. And sometimes, yeah, there has definitely been times where where I would feel like, when maybe I should stop doing this and just quit and just go and do something else. But for me, I always reflect on okay, maybe before I go there, I would say probably the best thing to avoid burnout is to right, is to really learn how to I know it's cliche, but really it's just about learning how to establish a work-life balance. All right, like for me, the studio work is work. When I go home, right, be it even if it's late and then I only spend a couple of hours back home, and before coming back to the studio, when it's home, I don't think about the studio at all anymore, right? So I would switch it off, right, and then go back to right home mode. Time with your family, with your loved ones, with your friends. You need to really really separate these two areas of your lives lah. You can't be bringing your work matters home, and um, and because it will just be a burden. You see, you are carrying around that weight and the luggage all around you. Now, I mean, I would say it's easier because I have a studio and I have a home. You see, so it's separate. So if you are only working from home, that's a little bit harder lah. But there are ways of doing it as well. So like I mentioned earlier, maybe you want to do a home studio, set aside a certain area, just a room, as I mentioned earlier, of in a space which is just for that, okay, and and um, um, and when it's time to switch off, right, to disconnect from that world, go out from the rest of the room when you are uh, taking time off from your work. Don't think about music. Okay, go fill your mind with other stuff, with other activities lah. Be it whatsoever other things that will take your mind off music lah. That is definitely helpful. But I would say most importantly, but personally for me, um, it kind of goes back to one of the sayings I mentioned earlier. Okay, it earlier it was in reference to the gear and equipment, but just now earlier I said, right, the phrase, right, there's a saying, the mission, right, informs the decision, right, the mission determines what is the decision. So I always go back towards um, I always go back towards the where I was when I first started out, and think about my decision. I think about why did I want to go into this in the first place, right? So I find it very helpful to always go back to those very very early days when we were still struggling. I was still a young struggling musician and an audio engineer. Just go back to that time, right? And then have that humility, and that helps to really sort of motivate lah, and prevent. That's me personally, right? It may work differently for you. It may work differently for others as well. So you got to find your own way, right? Hope that helps.
Right. We got next question here from Valerie. Open back or close back headphone?
Valerie, I only know of one Valerie here, so I'm trying to suspect, is it that Valerie or not? Open back or close back headphones? Okay, so arguably I would say for home studio use, definitely go for maybe not the word definitely lah, right? I recommend for starters, go for a close back headphone first. All right. Now, for those who know, right, headphones, right, there are two types of headphones based on their design. You have your closed back, right? Most of us are very familiar with the closed back because you can see that the entire headphone side is covered. But there's another type which is called an open back, and the one that I have here, you can see is actually this is an open back headphones. Now there's the it's usually described that the open back headphone is usually better for mixing because the soundscape is a little bit more natural, right? It's a little bit more natural sounding, better for mixing. But the downside of having an open back headphone is sounds can leak in and also leak out because this is not a seal. You see, the headphone cups are not sealed. It's open, right, to the outside environment. So for a start, definitely go for a closed back, right? And I mentioned earlier the Audio Technica M40s and the M50. Those are closed back models. So that's great first, and then maybe later down the line, right? If you can, if you have the budget, if you can afford it, get one open back headphone, right? and open back design as well for mixing work lah, right?
Okay. Okay. So we got like two more questions for the moment. Is you okay with it?
Oh yeah, sure, man.
Yeah.
I'm here. We're good for you can go all as long as you want.
Okay, from Suting, okay. Hello JD, thanks for the session. May I ask how do you organize or prioritize your work?
Oh, okay. How do I prioritize? Okay, that's a good question actually. Well, now for me, how do I organize my work is basically there are two ways, right? Um, um, on the I always look at things maybe on the in the longest scale on the long term and on the short term, right? So how on the long term basis that's kind of easy because it's always based on project. So I have all my projects always um, separated by the client, yeah, maybe this band or this certain singer or this label, or sometimes I have a certain folder. So it's very easy for me to look and then see what are the active projects that are really going on, you see. And I'm very flexible when it comes to these things. And maybe that's me, well, because I think I would love to think that I have that sort of discipline, right? Okay, right. So I I already know, or looking at the projects, right, and always because of communication with the clients, okay, okay, I already know. Oh, okay, this project needs to be done, has a certain deadline. Okay, this project has no deadline, so I can always push it a little bit further back in the list, in the pipeline of things lah. But usually it's usually always first come first serve lah, right? So whatever the projects have come in first, I work on those first. Yeah, those that come in later, if it's super urgent, then early, right? If they have an urgent deadline or something like that, right? Which sometimes it's like that lah. They'll come. Some people will come to you with last minute jobs. And that's in the big scale, right? At the macro level. Down to the micro level, right? Day to day, how I keep myself organized is still a super old fashioned way. I use a planner, a calendar like that. I still use a pencil and eraser and write everything down here in my planner here. Yeah, I still use this really old fashioned way, right? Super old fashioned, man. My life is inside these planners. If I lose this, if I lose this planner, right, I would totally forget. I'll be lost lah. I'll be like, oh, I forget what I'm supposed to do today, right? But you have your own ways. Different people have different ways. Keep a planner, keep a journal, right? Also nowadays, of course, I will sync also with the phone app as well. So I sync whatever I write in there down with the phone, right? And yeah, find your own ways lah to have it. So me, old fashioned planner, right? Right, pencil and pencil and paper. Yeah.
Right. So we got, I think the last question here. I don't know if anyone else want to ask. So from Ryan Rajaratnam, what are the best budget studio monitor?
Oh, okay, right. Best budget studio monitors, huh? I would say I would be okay. This one can be debated again. It's also the same question that gets asked so often, and
Yeah.
it's one of those questions which
It's
I
hard.
usually don't bother to reply, because everybody will give their recommendations and all that lah. Okay, but to answer the question, I would say arguably in the marketplace right now, the best in terms of price to sound quality, I would say. And again, I'm not the sponsored or endorsed by the company. This will be the Cali Audio Lp6,
Cali Audio.
right? Yeah. So the Lp6 is a 6.5 inch model, right? Now, I would argue that you will need at least lah. Okay, this is not a question of what's the best or what's the best price, because there are definitely cheaper and smaller and cheaper monitor speakers which are cheaper than that. But the Cali Audios are super cheap, man. It's less than it's like less than 1,800 ringgit for one pair, right? Right, for one pair. They're great. I use Cali LP6s over in my second room, and I use the LP8s, which is the bigger ones, inside my main room here. There are cheaper, but back to my earlier point, there are cheaper models which are, you have some which are like the 5.5 inch, 4.5 inch speakers, but I would really argue that you need at least 6.5 inch size woofers lah, right? Because really anything smaller than that, it's impossible for you to judge your low frequencies on that. And you always mix and balance your bass, your kick drum wrong. You very often definitely get it wrong one. So yeah, again, I'm not sponsored by the company, okay, right? Yeah.
Okay, so we got a discussion, okay, from Adam Joseph.
Okay.
Jadi VST versus real musician. In terms of cost, effectiveness, and getting things done, what can you advise to everyone? VST or real musician? Versus.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, this sort of questions which I inherently deep down, because I've come from the more old school things. I am definitely more personally, I'm going to be more geared towards real musicians lah. But reality is that VST instruments are really good nowadays, right? The quality that you can get out of it is really it's scarily good nowadays, right? Be it a drum VST or guitar amp or piano samples, yeah, right. But let's say okay, the only thing that I would say, so really I'm fine, I'm okay with either, some projects nowadays, and the reality now, because of when we are in lockdown and all that, it's harder for musicians to get into the studio. When it comes to drums, there's a lot more and more projects coming in nowadays which are all programmed, right? Either programmed, or some of them maybe have a electronic drums lah, and then it's played on an electronic drum, and sample. It's really, in the end, to me, all the music is the thing that matters, right? That's all. If there are any downsides, is that actually, if from my experience, right, it's actually cheaper and more cost effective if you get a good session drummer to come in and record, because they will do it very fast. They will give you great results in a very, very quick time. And the benefit is that your record, right, whatever project you're doing, your EP or single, whatever, is going to sound unique. It's going to sound unique. Because if you use a drum sample library, heck, so many people, hundreds, thousands of people are going to sample library, you see, the same drum sound, the same snare sound, the exact same thing. But when you record a real one, you will sound like you. So that's my argument for that lah, right? But in the end, again, it's the music that matters lah, right? So I'm totally okay with either.
Okay, so I think we got one more from
Oh,
the
okay.
same person shooting.
All
He
right.
said, okay, I think she. Okay, do you mind
Yeah.
to share an experience you had in dealing with a difficult client and how you handle the situation?
Dealing with difficult clients. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, this is outside the topic of home studio already. Home studio, you
Yeah.
you just deal with your own project, right? So what you worry about? But I understand. Actually, that's a very good question, right? Dealing with difficult clients, I think I am very fortunate. I'm very lucky in the sense that I have not really had to deal with difficult clients, right? I think the most important way, all right, prevention is better than cure, lah, all right, right. So the easiest way to prevent things from becoming problematic, to prevent things from becoming, is to always have good communication and to always lay the terms and lay things out before you start working with the artist or client or something like that, be it a band or solo artist or whatsoever, right? So it was something that was already taught to me. So hopefully I will share this with you as well. I think it's going to be helpful to avoid encountering difficulties, but always at least having a meeting with the client first of all. Have a sit down, have an explanation, right? Have a short little chat so that first of all, you get to know the band, you get to know the musicians, you get to know what they want, what their vision is, what they expect, and then secondly, right? You also have to inform them, make them aware of what your responsibilities, what is your job scope, what you can provide, what you can offer. You see, so basically, always have that initial gathering of minds, so that everyone is on the same page. You yourself, as a studio owner, as an engineer or producer, they as a musician, you all come together as the same page. What to expect from each other, things such as budget. What's the payment terms. Please always work these things out early on beforehand. Don't start the project halfway, then only you want to talk about money and budget. That's always a recipe for disaster lah. Okay. Right. So have all these things. Yeah, I would also argue very strongly, have all these things in writing. It's this is business, it's nothing personal. Okay. It's nothing personal. It's the right thing. It's a professional thing to do. If a band expects their work to be, if their band expects professional results, right? Then I should also, on the other hand, expect I mean, both parties should expect that we have to do things professionally lah. This means if there needs to be a contracts need to be agreed upon, in black and white, so be it. Those are the things that needs to be done. So that's how I would say preventing, right, is much better than having to solve the issues when the problem comes up. Usually when you have all those things out of the way, everything goes much more it's much smoother sailing down the line.
Okay, I think we got last question. This is the last one because this is from Ken Hall. Do you know Ken Hall?
Oh, hi Ken. Yes, I do. Hi.
Yeah.
Is he lecturing?
Project.
Is he a lecturer there?
Yeah, he's still lecturing.
Oh, I see.
Not,
Hey, all right.
not our this semester we don't have Mr. Ken.
Okay.
Next semester
Right.
Yeah, so the question is, there are not many projects during this pandemic, almost nothing for newbies. What is your advice for the fresh grads? What can they do to make themselves relevant to the industry instead of waiting for projects? Yeah.
Waiting for okay, right. I would I would say yes and no. Partially agree. Yes, there is definitely a drought of music projects. In the traditional sense, where a band or an artist comes in the studio to record. But there are a lot of areas where or where audio engineers, right, or audio students or musicians have had the ability to adapt to. And the one that has been most uh, the common thread which has gotten back to me is the issue of live performances and live streams. You know, and everyone knows, because of social distancing, with no concerts, no events, and all that, a lot of musicians had to revert to live streams, and then suddenly they realize that, hey, wow, the job of an audio engineer is very important. Right? Because now the musicians have to figure out how to plug this in, how to get the sound, and how to EQ this and EQ that. It's like, wow, so this is probably one of the areas which I think that again, because I'm coming from a background of someone who's an audio engineer, audio school, and then you guys in Ocean are an audio engineering school. I think you need to identify and to look into those segments. So instead of the traditional music recording and music production projects, look towards the areas where people need to do, let's say, live stream towards broadcast style audio. Maybe instead of, okay, may not be, you have your skills, right? Take your skills, use your skills um, and take them towards that area, live broadcasts, live streams, or live shows. Because now it's all about creating a content, and again, maybe it boils down to some for those who don't have an audio background, right? Musicians who don't really have audio background, sometimes, oh, the quality is not so good, right? I'm sure you guys have been flooded by sometimes on your Facebook timeline, or some guy is streaming the audio and the audio is distorted, or the room is like, wow, a lot of echo, a lot of room reflections, things like that, or the mix is not good. These are the areas where you have to try and explore lah, right? So students, audio graduates, right? These are the new frontiers that you have to break into, right? And don't just limit yourself to musicians or music. um, Another great thing that has not a great thing lah, right? Another thing that has come about because of COVID, because of the pandemic, is realizations that everyone needed to move towards digital platform for marketing. So we saw companies having to put out so many ads and online ads, and that's where opportunities are. you know the production for ads, music production for online ads, online marketing, their voice over work, and that's where growth, all right, last year, online marketing. So there is an opportunity there to, for an audio engineer to showcase and to make most of their skills, because it's the same skill set, right? Knowing how to EQ, knowing how to record, knowing how to get a mic, use a mic it up and get a good sound and everything. It's just a different segment, right? So whenever there's always when always an obstacle, whenever the industry faces an obstacle, it's a cliche lah, one door closes, there's another door that opens lah. So be open to accept, be open and be aware to identify that that there is always um, there is another way lah. There is always another door where your skills, your skills can be. So yeah, um, I would guess content as well. Create content. Maybe that's another way when audio engineers can apply their skills. Maybe you're not necessarily the one who's creating the content, like I myself, because of because of MCO and 1 year. Right, I started my own YouTube channel. Right,
Yeah.
I started my own sort of educational a platform called the Direct Access MixStream. It was something that I had always wanted to do all these years already, but didn't have time. But then finally, because of MCO last year, I decided to kick it off lah. So, so I've been doing that for a year plus already. So that's one thing. But if you're not keen to do it for yourself, go and look for people who want to create content. Go and approach YouTubers, go and approach creators and offer them your services. Yeah, you could be editors, learn some video editing, learn audio editing, even some simple things such as learning how to clean up their audio, right? Because nowadays the tools you have Isotope, you have right, and many other plugins, you can do a lot of cleaning up and post work to improve their content. You see, so when they see that you are an asset to it, then that's another source of income and jobs already.
Actually, that question is pretty good for us too, because we are studying, right? So we're going to graduate like I think next year. So it's bother us if the COVID still going on till next year.
Yep.
So on. It's still bothering us right now, like what we have to do after this if the pandemic is still going. Like, so actually that's pretty helpful.
Just
I also
got
only got the radio broadcast job, something like that.
Yeah.
At home. So still have other opportunities, not just the studio and live.
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's exactly. I think you made a good point there, Lokman. Right. Look into broadcast. So that's one area which is considered essential, lah. Right. That's not going away, lah. TV, radio, broadcast. Yes, it's not as glamorous or as sexy as I record in a studio with, get to record with musicians and record the famous artists or singer, or all that. Yeah, but sometimes look, having stability and having a good job, that's sometimes more important, man. Having that stability allows you to do a lot more other things, lah. Right. Having that financial stability, lah. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's all for our session. Right, we have come to an end. So I thank you to Jadi for joining us for this first session of our live streaming. So
right, no, thank you to you guys, right? Lune Studios and also Ocean Institute. Thank you so much, man. This is a real honor. It's been real fun to do this.
Yeah, maybe if we got other topics next time we can do. Maybe.
Next time around you can invite other people. I think your viewers would be, after this one they'll be like, oh, fed up of listening to me talk for so long.
Yeah.
Really, so helpful.
Yeah, but thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed. I've enjoyed talking. I really enjoyed sharing whatever little bit of knowledge that I have, whatever's contained inside my crazy head, lah. Okay, for you and everyone out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So for our viewers, thank you for joining us. So maybe if we got any other session, we can share to our Facebook page. So don't make sure to like the page and share. And also we will post this video on YouTube maybe tomorrow, so we can share it back to other.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, man. Right. Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Okay. Good night. Stay safe. Bye.
Good night. Stay safe too. Bye.